We'll be reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 49 to 50, and taking that all the way through the book of Exodus, chapters 1 through 2. So from Genesis chapter 49 to Exodus chapter 2. Bear with me as I try to get through this. Yah willing. Quickly, because my mom, she's coming to pick up her food. So I don't want her to interrupt while I'm here reading. The book of Genesis, chapter 49, verse 1. And Jacob called his sons and said, gather together, so that I declare to you what is to befall you in the last days. So he's telling them what's going to befall them in the last days. Now, this may be, what's to come to their children's descendants, you know, later in the last days, the actual last days. So, yeah, let's see. Let's see what it says. Verse 2. Gather together and hear, you sons of Jacob, and listen to Yisrael, your father. Verse 3. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my power and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of exaltation and the excellency of power. This is Reuben. Verse 4. Boiling like water, you do not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. So that's what he has to say about Reuben. Remember, Reuben slept with one of the mother of his children. I believe so. Yeah. Reuben slept with one of his brother's mothers. How about that? Reuben slept with one of his brother's mothers. I can't remember, but I believe she was either a servant of Rachel or a servant of Leah. Can't remember which one, but he slept with one of the servants of Leah or Rachel, which was a mother of one of his brothers. Yeah, out of pocket. So this is what Jacob had to say about that. Like, yo, you won't excel. It's like boiling like water. You do not excel because you went up to your father's bed. So Jacob didn't forget that. Then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Verse 5. Shimon and Levi, Shimon and Levi, as in Levi, are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. This is what he has to say about Shimon and Levi. I believe they're the next, you know, they were the second and the third born. So Shimon, and Levi are brothers. Their weapons are implements of violence. So this is the weapons that we may see today, you know, may very well be the weapons of Shimon and Levi. Their weapons are implements of violence. Verse 6. Let my being not enter their counsel. Let my esteem not be united to their assembly. Wow. Because they unalive the man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Verse 7, cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Yisrael. This is what he's had. This is what Jacob has to say about his son before this is what he has to say about his son. So he's basically letting them know about himself, letting them know about themselves before he go. Like, yeah, Reuben, I remember you slept with my, you slept with the mother of my child, which is your brother's mother. Like you was all the way out of pocket for that. And yeah, I remember Simon and Levi, y'all went and did what y'all did to avenge your sister. I believe that's what he's talking about. From what they unalived the man for dealing with their sister. For dealing with their sister, yeah, he had no business dealing with the sister because it was just like something that they didn't do. They didn't, indulge in. But at the same time, their father told them to chill. Their father said, "Yo, don't like you gonna make an enemy of me." Their father didn't give them the green light to do that. So this is what Jacob had to say before he go. He's like, "Yo, man, like I remember Reuben. I remember what you did, Reuben. This is why you ain't gonna excel. And I remember Simon, Levi. I remember what y'all did, and this is why y'all will be cursed. Y'all in displeasure. You know what I mean? In wrath." Because your wrath is cruel, and like this is what he's basically airing them out before he go. He's airing his sons out. He's airing all his sons out. Let's see what he has to say about his next son and his fourth born. Verse 8, you, Yehuda, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children bow down before you. Verse 9, Yehuda is a lion's cub. From the prey you have gone up, my son. He bowed down, he crouched like a lion, and like a lion who does rouse him, like a lion who does rouse him. This is how it's read. Like a lion who does rouse him. Like who's going to mess with a lion? Verse 10. The scepter shall not turn aside from Yehuda, nor an inscriber from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him is the obedience of peoples. Verse 11, binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's coat to the choice vine, he washed his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. Verse 12, his eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. So this is what he had to say. Nothing but good things for Yehuda. Nothing but good things for Yehuda. And that was saying something. Nothing but good things for Yehuda, because Yehuda, remember, he had his little scandal with with the woman, with the child, with the wife of his son that, you know, passed away one by one, and he was supposed to promise. I think he promised her that he would give her to his youngest born, and he didn't follow through. So she ended up tricking him into, you know, giving her a seed through him. So yeah, this is what we have. Like I don't know if Jacob was aware of that incident and how it played out, But even still, the way Yehuda handled it, he handled it respectfully. He handled it, how he was humble about it. Once he realized that who the girl was, he was like, man, she is more righteous than I am. She is more righteous than I am. So he handled it pretty well. He handled it how humbly, and he owned up. He owned up to it. You know what I mean? So this is, Yehuda seemed to be a man of integrity. So his father had nothing but good things to say about him. Let's see what else. Let's see who's next. Verse 13, Zebulun dwells at the seashore. He is for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. That's all he has to say about Zebulun. He's like he dwells at the seashore. So his children's children, descendants will dwell at the seashore. And he is for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Sidon. Wonder who that could be. Verse 14, Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between two burdens. Verse 15, and he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, and he inclined his shoulder to bear a burden, and became a subject to a slave labor. Yeah, so it seems like Issachar, he's seeing his son Issachar, you know, one one he's there he's going to wind up his children, his descendants is going to wind up in the labor of slavery. And they're going to be, it seems like they're going to be they're like going to be okay with that. Like they inclined their shoulder to bear a burden like that. So that's what he had to say about Issachar. Verse 16, Dan rightly rules his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Verse 17, Dan is a serpent by the way, and an adder by the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider falls backward. Verse 18, I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahuwah. So whatever that means, Dan would be. He's basically, Dan is, dangerous. It seemed like Dan is his children's children, his descendants. Well, they not to be played with, not to be messed with. Verse 19, Gad, as in Gad, his son Gad, a raiding band raids him, but he raids its heel. So whatever that is, a raiding band raids him, but he raids its heel. That could be a people that are always under attack, but they come out on the better end all the time. Verse 20. Bread from Asher is rich, and he gives delicacies of a sovereign. So Asher will be known for his rich bread, quality food, quality bread. And he gives his delicacies of a king. He gives delicacies of a king, of a sovereign. Verse 21, Naphtali is a deer let loose. He gives words of elegance. So Naphtali, is a well is a people of words. Naphtali children and his descendants, you know, will be well spoken. Verse 22. Joseph is an offshoot of a fruit bearer tree, an offshoot of a fruit bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over a wall. Verse 23. And the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. Verse 24. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. Verse 25. From the El of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of heavens, with blessings of the heavens from above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb. Verse 26. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors up to the limit of the everlasting hills. They are on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers. So he gave Joseph all the blessings of his fathers, the blessings, he gave him all that. Blessings of the heavens, blessings of the beneath, what's beneath. He gave him all blessings from all places. All blessings from all places. Verse 27. Benjamin is a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. Verse 28. All these are the 12 tribes. So that's what he had to say about Benjamin. You know, he's like a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. He's a hunter, go getter. His children, his children's children, his descendants, descendants. Verse 28. All these are the 12 tribes of Yisrael, and this is what their father spoke to them. And he blessed them, and he blessed each one according to his own blessing. Verse 29. And he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephraim the Hittite. Verse 30. In the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. Verse 31. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Yishak and Ribkah his wife. And there I buried Leah. Verse 32. And the field purchased and the cave which is in it from the sons of Heth. Verse 33. And when Jacob ended commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. So I don't think he went out instantly, like right at like in the middle of saying all this. Eventually, he breathed his last breath. And we have to, you have to be mindful that this is a story that need to be told. So it's not gonna speak on every minute, every second, every hour of the day, or each day that led up to each important event. Chapter 50, verse 1. And Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. Verse 2. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Yisrael. So this is where we see, you know, I believe the first body being embalmed, like as far as being documented as being embalmed, is a request made by Joseph for his father to be embalmed. And this is the first time we see this in scripture. Maybe it was a Egyptian thing, a Misraim thing. Who knows? Verse 3, and 40 days were completed for him. For so are completed the days of embalming. So it takes 40 days to embalm. It took 40 days to embalm. And the Mizrahites wept for him 7 days, 70 days. The Mizrahites, the Egyptians wept for Jacob. They wept for Jacob 70 days. Verse 4, and when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, if now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, verse 5, my father made me swear, saying, see, I am dying. Bury me in my burial site, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now, please let me go up and bury my father and return. Verse 6, and Pharaoh said, go up and bury your father as he made you swear. Verse 7, and Joseph went up to the bury, and Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mizraim. Verse 8, and all the house of Joseph and his brothers and his father's house, only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. Verse 9, and there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. This was all a love, this is all a love for Israel, for Jacob. Everyone attended his funeral. Verse 10. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan. And they lamented there with a great and very heavy lamentation. And he performed 7 days of mourning for his father. Verse 11. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, this is a grievous mourning for the Mizrahites. That is why its name was called Abel Mizraim, which is beyond the Jordan. Verse 12, and his sons did to him as he had commanded them. Verse 13, for his sons brought him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham brought with the field from Ephron the Hittite as property for a burial site. And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Mizraim, he and his brothers and all who went up with him to bury his father. Verse 15, and when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was unalive, gone, they said, what if Joseph hates us and pays us back all the evil which we did to him? This is what they were thinking. And they most likely was thinking is because this was likely something that they would have done. But Joseph wasn't like this. Joseph had integrity. Joseph wasn't like them. And they sent word to Joseph saying, before your father passed, he commanded, saying, Verse 17. This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of Elohim, of your father. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. So they were so scared that they made up this story about, their dad telling them to ask for, pretty much ask for forgiveness. Verse 18. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, see, we are your servants. Verse 19. And Joseph said to them, do not fear, for am I in the place of Elohim? Like letting them know I'm not in the place of Elohim to decide who goes and who stays. You know, I'm not in the place of Elohim. Another humble act on Joseph's part. Verse 20. And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is this day, to keep a great man people alive. Verse 21. And now, do not fear, I provide for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Verse verse 22. And Joseph dwelled in Mizraim, he and his father's household. And Joseph lived 110 years. Verse 23. And Joseph saw Ephraim children to the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born of Joseph's knee. Verse 24. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, to Yishak, and to Jacob. Verse 25. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here. And Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mizraim. So now we see coffins. We see we're being by introduced to coffins. We've been introduced to embalming. Book of Exodus, chapter 1. And these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Mizraim with Jacob, each one with his household. Verse 2. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Verse 4. Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. Verse 5. And all those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 beings. 70 beings, as Joseph has already in Mizraim. Verse 6. And Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. Verse 7. And the children of Israel bore fruit and increased very much, multiplied and became very strong, and was fouled, the land was filled with them. Verse 8. Then a new sovereign arose over Mizraim who did not know Joseph. Verse 9. And he said to his people, see, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we are. Verse 10, come, let us act wisely towards them. They increase, and it shall be when fighting before us. I'm sorry. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase, and it shall be fallen fighting before befalls us. So that's an interesting verse. Verse verse 8. Then a new sovereign arose over Mizraim who did not know Joseph. Verse 9. He said to his people, see, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Verse 10. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase, and it shall be when fighting befalls us, that they shall join our enemies and fight against us, and shall go up out of the Lord's. Verse 11. So they set slave masters over them to afflict them with their brothers, and they rebuilt for Pharaoh study city Pithom and Raamez. Verse 12. But the more they afflicted them, and the more they increased and grew, and they were in dried of the children of Israel. Verse 19. And the make the Mizrahites made the children of Israel serve with garments. Verse, where am I? I'm sorry. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. And the Mizrahites made the children of Israel serve with harshness. Verse 14. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all kinds of work in the field. All their work which they made them do was with harshness. Verse 15. And then the sovereign of Mizraim brought to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of who was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. Verse 16. And he said, when you deliver the Hebrew woman and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. Verse 17. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not do as sovereign of Mizraim commanded them, and kept the male children. Verse 20. So the sovereign of Mizraim called for the midwives and said to them, why have you done this and kept the male children alive? Verse 19. And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Mizrahites woman, for they are lively and give birth before the eyes and give wait, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. Verse 20. So Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased and became very numerous. Verse 21. And it came to be, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. Verse 22. And Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter. So this is what Pharaoh had to say, the new Pharaoh, who didn't know Joseph, who didn't know the Hebrews, who didn't know any of them, and obviously didn't care. Chapter 2, verse 1. And a man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. Verse 2. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovingly child, and she hid him 3 months. Verse 3. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of wicker from him and coated it with tar and pitch, and put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the edge of the silver. I'm sorry, by the edge of the river. Verse 4. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. So this is Moses, this is Moshe the baby, and his sister stood at a distance to know what was going to happen, to rescue her brother. Verse 5. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her young woman and, a, and her young woman were walking by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her female servant to get it. Verse 6. And opened it and saw the child, and see, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the children of the Hebrews. She instantly knew that he was one of the children of the Hebrews just by looking at him. Verse 7. And his sister said to the Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew woman to nurse children for you? Verse 8. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the young woman went and called the child's mother. Verse 9. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse him for me. Then I shall pay your wages. So the woman took the child and nursed him. Verse 10. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Malak. I'm sorry, she called his name Moshe. She called his name Moshe, saying, and that's for Moses, the short for Moses. Not short for Moses, but Moses. I'm sorry, I'm slipping. I got the itis. I just ate some good food. I'm like, it's Shabbat, and I'm getting Shabbat sleepy. Sorry about that. Because I have drawn him out of the water. So this is why she called him Moses, because she had drawn him out of the water. Every time we hear someone being named, whatever follows the name, whatever meaning or reason follows the name, that's why he or she was named that. what they were named. And Moses was named this because verse 11. And in those days it came to be when Moshe was grown that he went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens. And he saw a Mizraim striking a Hebrew, one of his brothers. One second, y'all. That's mom. Got it. Give her food. So, where were we? And in those days it came to be when Moses was grown that he went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens. And he saw a Mitzrayim striking a Hebrew, one of his brothers. So this is what Moses is seeing, like his brother being struck, by an Egyptian. His brothers, like his relatives. Verse 12. So he turned this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he struck the Mizraim and hid him in the sand. Verse 13. And he went out the second day and saw two Hebrew men fighting, and he said to the one who did the wrong, why do you strike your neighbor? Verse 14. And he said, who made you a head and a judge over us? Do you intend to unalive me as you unalived the Mitzrayim? And Moshe feared and said, truly the matter is known. So his own brothers was like threatening to, give him up, bringing up, what he thought was, doing, looking out for them, protecting his brothers. They was throwing it in his face, you know, ready to get him jammed up. So he's like, man, it's like the matter is known, people know. So he's panicking. He trying to like, skip town. Verse 15, and Pharaoh heard of this matter, and he sought to unalive Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. Verse 16, and the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the troughs to water, and they filled the trough to water their father's flock. Verse 17, but the shepherds came and drove them away. Then Moshe stood up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. So far Moses is like rescuing everybody. He rescued, came to the defense of his Hebrew brothers and unalived the Egyptian and hid him in the sand, and his own brothers was, you know, pretty much telling everybody about it to the point, he had to flee town because Pharaoh was looking to, you know, unalive him for doing so. And now he's coming to the rescue of these these women in Midian, in the land of Midian. These and they so far he's just like a man of justice, a vigilante. Verse 18, and they came to Ruel, their father, and he said, how is it that you have come so soon today? Verse 19, and they said, a Mizraim rescued us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. Verse 20, and he said to his daughters, and where is he? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him eat bread. So they described him as an Egyptian. Now, this is an indication that the Egyptians and the Hebrews looked the same. Another indication of this, that the Hebrews and the Egyptians look the same, is how Joseph blended in. Joseph blended in with the Hebrews. I'm sorry, Joseph blended in with the Egyptians to the point his brothers couldn't tell the difference. So we see that the Egyptians and the Egyptians and the Hebrews clearly looked the same. You couldn't tell the difference. You really couldn't tell a difference. The only way you would probably tell a difference from the Egyptian and the Hebrew was, traditional bearding, or a Hebrew traditional bearding, and the Egyptian shaving, you know, because I believe that's what they got into. They shaved, and the indication of that is, how when Joseph was released, he shaved everything. He shaved everything off, cleaned up. But I don't think that was something the Hebrews did. Obviously, we learn later in the instructions of God that not to use the razor. You know, not to use the razor to our heads. So yeah, this is a good indication that, these women calling them a Mizraim, calling them Egyptian. I guess you couldn't tell a difference from an Egyptian and a Hebrew, according to, you know, based on the complexion of their skin. Verse 19, and they said, and Mizraim rescued us from the hand of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock. Verse 20, and he said to his daughters, and where is he? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him eat bread. Verse 21, and Moshe agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave Shipporah, his daughter, to Moses. So a Midian man gave Moshe a Midian wife. Verse 22, and she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have become a sojourner in a foreign land. So he acknowledged that he was in a foreign land, married a foreign wife of Midian, and had a child, named him Gershom, because he was in a foreign land. Verse 23, and it came to be after these many days that the sovereign of Mizraim died, So the Pharaoh that was seeking to unalive him for what he did, he checked out. And the children of Israel groaned because of the slavery, and they cried out, and their cry came up to Elohim because of the slavery. So yeah, these were the times that Israel, the children of Israel, found themselves in slavery. So this had to be years later, years on years and years later, to the point they didn't remember Joseph. They didn't remember, you know, the children of Israel. And like I said, the Egyptians were enslaved first by technically Joseph. But even though they was under the rule of Pharaoh, Joseph was the one who came up with with the whole system. Verse 24, and Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yishak, and with Jacob. Verse 25, and Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. So this is the Most High honoring His word, what He said, what He promised to Abraham, Yishak, and Jacob. And I believe that's to this day. You know, Abraham, Yishak, Jacob, what was promised, the Most High delivers those people according according to his ancient promise, his ancient word. And that was the reading of the book of Genesis. We wrapped up the book of Genesis, and we began the book of Exodus. And we're going to get into the rest of, we're going to get into the rest of Exodus next week, y'all willing. Till next time, I'm gonna bless us out. I'm gonna bless us out and log out and log back in for the reading of the book of Isaiah. Bear with me. Y'all will receive your blessing. It's the blessing that was given to Moshe in the book of Numbers, chapter 6, to give to bless the people. May Yahuwah bless you and barak you and guard you. May Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor to you. May Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you peace. Peace, Shabbat, peace, love, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, peace and love.